They number in the tens of thousands, yet their voices are not heard. They're Sri Lanka's disappeared, people who went missing during the country's most tumultuous periods of political and civil unrest. The disappearances continue today, as do calls for justice from the families of the victims. Relatives of the missing are now taking action by suing the perpetrators of this crime against humanity. And the memories of the missing people are now being permanently etched into stone. These are the faces of the disappeared, people who were abducted and then killed by death squads during the late 1980s and early 1990s. Most were Marxist youths rebelling against the so-called reign of terror of President Ranil Singh Premadasa. Labor activists also became casualties. Then there were the civilians caught in the civil war between government forces and Tamil rebels. All were either husbands, fathers, or sons.
We have never seen with our own eyes about our sons. We heard from the media, so we still hope that they will show up today or tomorrow.
Rosalinona and Payasena's two sons have been missing for more than 10 years. Both were abducted in December 1989.
I have lived with those days with a lot of pain. Physically, we survived through manual work.
They say the loss has also meant hardship on their family, since their sons were the breadwinners for the household. Rosalinona and Payasena show us the only photos of their sons, but they are not alone. An hour away are others who share their loss.
In Sri Lanka, there are many dates like New Year's Day, May Day, Valentine's Day. For families of the disappeared, we suggested October the 27th as a day to remember. We asked the government to make this an official date to honor the missing.
Jayanti Dandaniya was the driving force in getting this monument erected outside Colombo 2 years ago. It's dedicated to those who've disappeared.
The importance of this location is that this is exactly where the burnt bodies of my husband and his lawyer were found on October the 27th, 1989. That's why on the 27th of each month, families of the disappeared gather here to remember their loved ones.
The monument was inspired by a similar structure erected in Gwangju, South Korea, where government troops massacred hundreds of democracy demonstrators in 1980. Families gather here to share memories and stories of their missing loved ones. This monument not only pays homage to the dead, but it's also a source of strength for the living, for the relatives of those who've disappeared. It's here where they come to remember, to try and recover from the trauma they've endured, and also to seek spiritual strength in seeking recourse against the perpetrators of this crime against humanity.
Hundreds of parents have filed habeas corpus applications. Some cases are still being heard in the courts, and some cases have finalized. The perpetrators have asked to pay sort of damages to the parents.
Have they paid?
Actually, the case was the procedure was very slow in this case. Most of the cases they have filed appeals.
Most of the disappearances happened before President Chandrika Kumaratunga took office in 1994. Since then, she's pledged culprits would not go unpunished and that all the mass graves scattered throughout the country would be unearthed. The administration has set up several commissions to look into the more than 30,000 cases of missing people.
When the new administration came into power in 1994, people found several mass graves. We found one in Dulapitiya area. So the parents who have identified the remains of the dead bodies have filed death inquest applications in the courts. So after that inquest, the court identified several perpetrators.
While a handful of cases wind their way slowly through the judicial process, the government's Commission on Disappearances has offered compensation to families of victims. Rights activists say the move has been ceremonial, especially since the amount is too small to ever make up for their lost loved ones. But that's not all.
Even though the administration have changed, we can see a lot of people who were accused for human rights violations and accused for disappearances were or are still in the government, in the administration and in the military also.
As a human rights lawyer, does that make you angry?
Of course.
Human rights activists say the perpetrators are still in government. They still serve in the military. Is that true?
There are persons like that. But you see, we also have our fundamental rights enshrined in the Constitution. To get rid of them, you can't do it on hearsay evidence. You have to have a case proved against them. Otherwise, they go to the Fundamental Rights Court and they say that they have been deprived equality with the law.
As Justice Minister and a former rights and trade union activist, Pativirukun finds himself in a delicate balancing act.
When we punish people, we do so through courts. But when you go to courts on criminal charges, these are criminal charges, we have what is called proof beyond reasonable doubt.
Is it a closed chapter for Sri Lanka now?
Well, I don't think so, because it is the consequences of disappearances are still ongoing. Especially disappearances now doesn't happen much in the south, but still the disappearances are ongoing in the north and the east, where the war zones. But the most important thing is the state agencies who were used to make these disappearances occur, they have never been reformed. So the lawlessness in the country is a big problem.
Sanjeewa Liyanage monitors the issue of disappearances throughout Asia.
As ongoing disappearances, I would say in Kashmir in India, in Punjab province in India, in Nepal, and in Aceh in Indonesia. These things are still ongoing besides Sri Lanka.
What can you do to get those responsible and bring them to justice?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the local legal systems are not capable of handling such complex crimes against humanity. The legal systems are not up to standards, not international norms and standards. So that's why many groups are suggesting to have international tribunals to hold those perpetrators who are responsible, to try them in international tribunals.
But just as the families of the missing struggle to heal their wounds, many know that perpetrators of disappearances won't be appearing before an international tribunal anytime soon. The Sri Lankan Attorney General's office says it's currently handling more than 350 disappearance cases that occurred before 1994. It also maintains that more than 550 police officers and security force personnel are being prosecuted for human rights violations.